clearing out, and a low of 58. Mostly cloudy and 59. Your next news update is at 7. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Emmy. Let's start with Israel on campus before we go to the actual Israel and the war in Gaza. Rich Goldberg from Foundation Defense of Democracies will join us. But BLM Brandon, is intervening. Oh, thank goodness. And, common sense we know will prevail. Brandon Johnson issuing the statement that his administration has been in close contact with the University of Chicago.
Yeah, really? Okay.
Spoke with the president there, Alida Sados, where I made clear my commitment to free speech and safety on college campuses. And then he goes on and blah, blah, blah. Our ultimate goal is for the people to be safe on campus through the mayor's office for community safety. How's that going? We have been in contact with the CPD, reaffirmed its commitment to de-escalation and constitutional policing. In other words, stand down. My administration will continue to evaluate and assess these demonstrations as they develop. So, hey, President, I just want to, University of Chicago president, I'm telling our cops to stand down. I hope we're on the same page in allowing these model Hamas protesters to run rampant. And, you need a negotiation team to work with their negotiation team so you can orchestrate a ceasefire that includes, throw them some scholarships maybe and, community center, maybe have some professors out there to get arrested with them so they feel some solidarity with the administration, that sort of thing.
Well, they did yesterday. They had 100-plus faculty members from University of Chicago defending the pro-Palestinian student encampment, saying they should not be touched, they should not be arrested. 100-plus, Dan, that were out there.
Well,
and
yeah,
this morning, now they're starting to remove. They gave them a deadline at midnight.
Yeah,
and of course,
it's
no
the
one
same
moved.
thing.
Well,
right?
now university police are there. I do not see Chicago police in there.
Yeah, it's
time to go home now.
They want to be the Ivy League, and so they're behaving the same way from the administration to the student body. In the Ivy League, where they invite people like Maria Ressa to be the commencement speaker. That was at Harvard. Maria Ressa, she's a Nobel laureate, don't you know? Reporters Without Borders. And she's also a lunatic who penned an op-ed comparing Israel to Nazi Germany and suggesting that Israel was targeting news reporters, her words, unprecedented attack on journalist safety at the hands of the Israeli government. Right. So these are the deep thinkers that you have dominating the discussion on college campuses, with the exception of some pushback from frat bros at UNC and
other places
and elsewhere. I mean, we mentioned Ole Miss and LSU and even University of Chicago. We've seen students counter protesting, so that's encouraging. The most noxious thing I've seen yesterday for Holocaust Remembrance Day, you had these same terrorist sympathizing nitwits protesting on the grounds of Auschwitz. Yeah. Demonstrators rolling out Palestinian flags, hoisting balloons, free Palestine, all the usual chants as there were events going on to remember Holocaust victims at Auschwitz, one of the prison camps, one of the death camps. This is who you're dealing with. I don't know if there's a more profound way to anecdotally describe who you're dealing with, the mentality that you're dealing with. Yeah, the violence and so on and so forth. To essentially spit on the graves of Holocaust victims.
Sickening.
So this is where things are at with these anti-war protesters, as we're told to believe by the likes of Omar and Tlaib and Brandon Johnson.
And here,
I go back.
Oh, sorry, but I was going to go on. Sorry.
I go back to this Alicia Wiesel op-ed that we talked about yesterday in USA Today because it's one of the really one of the most beautiful essays on this topic I've read in the last several months, and of course you would expect that from a Wiesel, given who his parents were, but it's not just because he recalls the conversations with his father. It's also because the challenge he issues, and I haven't heard it put quite this way, reminding universities what they're supposed to be in stark contrast to what they are. Universities are obliged to allow free speech. They're also obliged to make sure that every one of their students can attend their classes free of harassment and verbal assault. But above all, they're obliged to teach. Our enemies accuse us of colonizing Palestine. Where are the professors of history who have studied the archaeological and written records, which the New Testament and the Quran include the New Testament and the Quran, that connect the ancient Jews to Israel? Why are they silent? Our enemies insist that Jews do not need our own nation. Where are the faculty who should be pointing out that when European Jewry needed shelter from the Nazis, no other nation would offer them refuge? Our enemies accuse Israel of genocide. Where are the history lessons on the blood libel, the historical precedent for accusing Jews of murder, and the repeated Palestinian rejection of Israel's offers of self-rule, land, and peace that dispel the genocide lie completely? He goes on from there, but I like that challenge because it's not even getting into the silly business of the right to protest and so on and so forth by these free speech hypocrites. Free speech for my side, but we're happy to silence yours. It's challenging them to be who they say they are, and they are not. Something else too. It's not just the professorate. The administration. The Journal published the other day an excerpt from a letter that Father Ted Hesburgh, who was the president of the University of Notre Dame, wrote at the time. This was in 1969 during the campus upheavals related to mainly the Vietnam War. This was back when this is a long time ago. This is back when Notre Dame was a Catholic university. He writes, now he talks about the clear lines of communication, free speech on campus, and so on and so forth, all the pro forma stuff that is not in controversy. They pretend it's in controversy. It's not in controversy. But he goes on, Father Hesburgh does, now comes my duty of stating clearly and unequivocally what happens if anyone or any group that substitutes force for rational persuasion, be it violent or nonviolent, will be given 15 minutes of meditation to cease and desist. If they do not, within the time period cease and desist, they will be asked for the identity cards. Those who produce these will be suspended from the community as not understanding what this community is. Those who do not have or will not produce identity cards will be assumed not to be members of the community and will be charged with trespassing and disturbing the peace on private property and treated accordingly by the law. After notification of suspension or trespass in the case of non-community members, if there is not within 5 minutes a movement to cease and desist, students will be notified of expulsion from this community and the law will deal with them as non-students. There seems to be a current myth that university members are not responsible to the law and that somehow the law is the enemy, particularly those whom society has constituted to uphold and enforce the law. Police. I would like to insist here that all of us are responsible to the duly constituted laws of this university community and to all of the laws of the land. There is no other guarantee of civilization versus the jungle or mob rule here or elsewhere. Have you seen any university president, with maybe the exception of Ben Sass at the University of Florida, say anything that resembles that statement from Father Hesburgh back in '69? Right. And therein lies the institutional rot. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined, as I mentioned, by Richard Goldberg. He is, I want to make sure I get his title right, former national security official and U.S. Senate aide, currently senior advisor at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Rich, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good morning.
Anything that you want to add with respect to our common alma mater, University of Chicago, or the situation at the university level generally?
Well, I think we're seeing the convergence of three phenomena all at once, and that's why this is all exploding, whether it's Northwestern, Chicago, or elsewhere around the country, Columbia, USC. You have the massive expansion and growth of the DEI infrastructure on these college campuses and bringing in radical left administrators, faculty, who are indoctrinated in this belief that they're part of this radical intersectional, world that is not mainstream in any way, and that their job is to protect the oppressed. And if you are white, if you are Jewish, by the way, you are white, and therefore anybody who claims offense against a Jew needs to be protected, needs to be heard. This is their story. And so they are intervening actively on these campuses to protect the rights of those who are antagonizing, harassing, intimidating, assaulting Jews on campus because it's coming from this DEI culture. The second thing we see is the resurgence, reconstitution of Hamas networks throughout the country. Chicago is actually the hub. People may not know this, but if you remember back in the Wayback Machine, over 20 years ago, the indictments over the Holy Land Foundation and other related groups, that was a big hub here in Bridgeview Mosque on the southwest side in Chicago. There's a major Hamas front networking group that's always been there. They've reconstituted under a new name called American Muslims for Palestine. That's the mothership for the National Students for Justice in Palestine, and we're seeing how organized they have become, and they're larger than ever, and we have been doing nothing on the DOJ side to crack down on this Hamas network for probably over 15 years at this point. The third piece is how that Hamas network has embedded itself inside the far left intersectional world and the DEI world over the last 20 years. This has been a calculated strategy. It's why you see these crazy stories over the last several years of LGBTQ clubs at universities saying no Zionists allowed in the LGBTQ club. Why you saw the Women's March carrying horrific anti-Semitic banners over the last several years. This is not a new phenomenon. It didn't just start today. This has been a calculated plan of embedding this pro-Hamas community inside this intersectional community by claiming the same liberated ethnic studies, Marxist culture of, hey, we're oppressed people too, you got to let us into the club. Those white Jews are our oppressors. And this is it. It's culminating here. And these university presidents are so weak, that they just succumb to the mob. Their faculty are all with the campers. We've seen that happen. You just talked about them linking arms down in Chicago. It was the faculty of Northwestern, led by this real radical anti-Semite at the journalism school, Stephen Thrasher, that stopped Northwestern police from clearing out the camp on day one. They actually assaulted the Northwestern police. Nobody's been arrested. Nobody's been suspended or terminated. So what a breakdown in all norms, in all order, in the entire rules of the universities they have that they don't want to enforce. And you know what? Northwestern's going to pay the price. Their president, President Schill, has now been asked to come before Congress. And I can't wait to see that show. Bring popcorn on May 23rd.
Oh, yeah.
The House Education Committee talks to President Schill. And listen, University of Chicago, Amy talked about they're moving in. I understand Chicago police provided no backup, as we know. Brandon Johnson told CPD to stand down.
Yeah.
Interesting note. Apparently 20 to 30 Cook County sheriff are on scene providing backup to university police. So kudos to the county sheriff that actually did deliver some personnel when CPD was told to stand down.
Well,
Last point.
Yeah.
Dan, if you're thinking about the DNC, by the way, this summer, and what that's going to look like, and Mayor Johnson won't even lend support to bring order to a college campus, good luck to the city of Chicago when the DNC rolls around.
Are you surprised by University of Chicago, their demands? They want Gaza scholarships for at-risk initiatives, so they want to bring 8 at-risk Palestinian scholars to work and study at University of Chicago. They said it's meaningful because it will remove 8 Palestinians from conditions of genocide.
So what I found amazing about this is it was modeled on the concessions that Northwestern gave. So Northwestern, backed down day one, pulled back Northwestern police, let's negotiate. This camp grew and grew and grew. Outsiders kept flooding into camp. I went down there to Evanston. I watched it. Random people from Chicago just coming into the camp, bringing boxes, supplies, setting up camp. No check of student IDs. The security threat was ridiculous. Some guy walking around in a sweatshirt with one of the leaders of Hamas on it, wearing a whole Hamas getup, covering his face. I mean, crazy stuff going there. And they say, "What can we do? We got to appease you." And they give them scholarships guaranteed for Palestinian students, faculty slots guaranteed for Palestinian faculty. By the way, that's a violation of federal law. You can't offer ethnic-based admission like that. And then they're going to build a building for Muslim students at the university cost. I don't remember Jewish students or any other student being able to just get a building. Usually you have to raise money for that in the community, and everybody supports it. So all of these crazy things. So that's where University of Chicago got this idea to say, okay, we want this stuff too in our demands. The crazy thing about University of Chicago was they didn't even get anything for giving the scholarships to the kids. That was to entitle them to continue negotiating. They had to give a concession up front. The camp didn't even have to come down. It's like John Kerry negotiating with the Iranians at these universities. I mean, it's just so mind-boggling. If I was a Booth graduate, my MBA, I probably took a class in negotiations. I am so embarrassed of my diploma at this point. The university can't even negotiate with a bunch of hoodlums.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you say, basically it's like the public sector unions negotiating with government. They're on both sides of the deal. That's the problem. Rich, unfortunately, we're up against it. We got to let you go, but always appreciate it. Rich Goldberg, former National Security Council official and U.S. Senate aide, currently senior advisor at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thanks, Rich.
You bet.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
The IRS